Okay, this first page here is review. So I have a picture of the cell, and inside the cell we have our central nucleus. Inside the nucleus for number 2, it says X-shaped organelle. Technically it's not an organelle, but they are X-shaped. Those are our chromosomes. Our chromosomes are important because they hold all of our DNA wound up tightly as an alpha helix. And if you have a specific segment of DNA that codes for a trait, we call that a gene. Okay, we're going to be moving on to one of my favorite topics in genetics, and that's karyotypes. I have 3 pictures there of karyotypes, and I want you to notice that they're really brightly colored. Those karyotypes are a special picture of an individual's chromosomes. So chrome means color, right? And that has to do with how they were dyed, or how the lighting that they used to show them. Some means body. Okay, so chromosome just means colored body. And again, that has to do a lot with the imaging we use to see them underneath a karyotype. So humans have 23 different chromosomes. Maybe you've seen that with advertisements for Ancestry.com or 23andMe. We carry one set that we inherit from our mom. So if you look at the picture on the left, I want you to follow along with me. At each of those 23 locations, one of those X's or chromosomes comes from mom. So I would use a highlighter tool if I were you. I'm going through, and except for the last pair, or the 23rd pair, I would highlight in orange one pair, or one of the chromosomes from that the pairs at each location in orange. We get the other set from our dad. All right, so I'm going to go through, and except for the last one, the 23rd one, I'm going to make the second part of that pair purple. Now, if we have 23 different chromosomes and we get one for mom and one for dad, that means we should have 46 chromosomes total. That 23rd pair that I haven't touched yet, that is known as our sex chromosomes. If you're XX, we consider that chromosomally female, and XY is considered chromosomally male. I want you guys to know that we're not talking about gender. We're really just talking about chromosomal inheritance of XX or XY. There is quite a bit of variation even in this, and we'll get to that later at the end of this lesson. If you look at this picture here, I can tell that the chromosomal sex of this person is male. I'm wondering if you can tell why. It's actually because that Y chromosome is much smaller than the X chromosome. So that small Y chromosome, that must come from dad, right? Because males are the ones that have the Y chromosome. So if you have a son, that Y chromosome must come from dad. That means the X chromosome came from mom. Okay. I have a picture here just to demonstrate the difference in size between XX and XY. That Y chromosome is much smaller. I will say as a side note too, there's a lot of sex-linked disorders, and luckily for females, if there's a mutation or something wrong on one of our X chromosomes, then the other X chromosome can kind of step in and compensate. Unfortunately, males, if there's something wrong with a gene on your X chromosome, you're kind of stuck with it because you don't have a second X chromosome to compensate. Anyways, moving on, you might be wondering when we get karyotypes or why we would get them. Well, we usually collect karyotypes from pregnant women. We collect them from fetuses. So you can see in this picture there's a big needle that they insert into the womb of a pregnant lady. And they're doing that to collect the amniotic fluid. That's why this is called amniocentesis. Amniocentesis, again, it's because you're getting that amniotic fluid that will give you access to the DNA of the baby. It is a very invasive procedure. It's risky. It's difficult. There are teachers at Tri-North that had this when they were pregnant. But even though it's risky, some doctors find it absolutely necessary to look at the karyotypes of a baby. You can tell from that karyotype the possible chromosomal sex, that just means XX or XY, but more importantly, some possible chromosomal divergence. I'll talk about some examples of chromosomal divergence here at the end. Before we do that, though, I want to make sure that we understand the inheritance of sex chromosomes. So I have an example that I made from Family Guy. We're going to assume that Peter is chromosomally male. So that means he's going to be XY. So wherever I see Peter, I'm going to put XY. Lois, we're going to also assume is chromosomally female. So she will be XX. So I'm putting XX down for Lois. Now the son, I can't remember. Is he Griffin or Griffith? I'm going to say Griffin. Griffin, because he's a son, we're going to assume that he's chromosomally male. But I want you to think carefully about where he gets each of those sex chromosomes. Where would he get his X chromosome from? Well, the Y chromosome has to come from dad, right? Dad is the only one with that Y chromosome, so mom must be giving Griffin the X chromosome. If we look at the daughter, Meg, on the right, we can assume she's XX, chromosomally female. That means Peter is giving her his X chromosome, and mom is giving, of course, the only thing she can give, which is her X chromosome. Just to reiterate, dad gives Y chromosomes to his sons and X chromosomes to his daughters. Okay? Moms can only give X chromosomes to their offspring. Okay, I'm going to give you an example of reading karyotypes and why they're important. So I have a picture here of an individual. We're going to first identify the chromosomal sex. So again, you're looking at that 23rd pair, and those look to be about the same size. There's no smaller chromosome there, so we're going to call that XX or chromosomally female. There's a chromosomal divergence in this picture. I wonder if you can find it. There are 3 chromosomes at one of these locations. Did you find it? It's the 21st one. Okay? Doctors call this trisomy 21, tri meaning 3, some meaning body, so there's 3 bodies at the 21st location, but you probably know this is Down syndrome. So this is a young girl who has Down syndrome. And we have several students at Tri-North that do have Down syndrome. And it does result in slightly shorter lifespan and lower cognitive functioning. But I have had students that were students with Down syndrome that were put in, who were mainstreamed in general ed classrooms. There are about 1 in 1,000 children that are diagnosed with Down syndrome. Okay, the second example, we're again going to look at the chromosomal sex. And if you look there, you should notice something atypical. This person has 3 sex chromosomes. They are XXY, and this is a divergence that we call intersex. So that's one of the divergences on this karyotype. The other one has to do with only one chromosome being at a location. I wonder if you can find it. It's at the 7th. There's only 1 chromosome there. So we call that monosomy 7, mono meaning 1, somy meaning body. There's only 1 body at the 7th location. And then XXY, that intersex condition, that's called Klinefelter's. So you might be curious about the intersex condition. I'll just say briefly, there are people in the population that have only 1 X chromosome. They're XXY, they're XYY, they're XXX. It's estimated 1 in 2,000 people are intersex. Some of these are kind of silent. I know, for example, the XXX, that's called meta-female. That's a silent mutation for the most part. But Klinefelter, the XXY that we had on the previous karyotype, those people usually decide to live as male. but they tend to have traits that are present in both males and females. So they, for example, will have some formation of breasts. Sometimes they are, or oftentimes they are sterile. They can't have children because they have low sperm count. And again, 1 in 2,000 people do not fit the binary of XX female, XY male. They're intersex. The other chromosomal divergence on that page, monosomy 7, it's very, very rare, and it results in MDS. It's a blood condition, and it can hinder bone formation. Okay, that's all I have for today. Go ahead and submit this on Canvas. I hope you guys learned a couple things about karyotypes and genetic divergences.